Hello folks, and welcome to this special edition of What Do Artists Do All Day, or How Do Artists Make Ends Meet. We've got my friend Ewan McClure. Ewan and I were at art school together, and Ewan's going to be showing us today some of his portrait techniques. We also have today a beautiful model, so we'll see if we can make a real mess of what we do with her. Right, Ewan. So first of all, you're going to show us how you lay out the palette, how you begin a painting.
Yes. I tend to think about a checklist before I even put brush to canvas. Just obvious things like making sure the canvas is in enough light, the subject's in enough light. Often we'll think more about the lighting on the subject and forget all about whether or not the canvas is, if we'll be able to get the whole tonal range on the canvas. So it's got spotlights on both. And yes, I'll just show you the palette. Right, so this is just my usual palette of a deep crimson, a mid-tone red, a yellow. I usually use Windsor red, Windsor yellow, a viridian green, ultramarine blue. I occasionally have burnt umber on the palette. I'm using burnt umber today. Raw sienna, burnt sienna, ivory black and white. And in preparation for the portrait I've mixed some piles of mud, just some piles of flesh tone. I tend to think of flesh tone as being orange and grey, just sort of greyed down shades of orange. So this is actually black and white plus the red and the yellow in different shades from dark to light. Now obviously these are very dulled down. I'll brighten them up with more colour adding as I go, but yeah, we tend to use overly bright colours, I would say, for flesh, even though it's within a fairly limited range of hue. So but I don't always do this. This is just, I thought this would speed the process on a bit, and as you see I've got huge piles of paint. I think you shouldn't skimp on the paint, because you don't want to be squeezing out tubes of paint during the process. It'd be better to just have it to hand.
So Ewan and I are going to be doing the painting together. He's going to be teaching me, or trying to teach me, and we'll see what we come up with. So we'll let Ewan just lead us through.
Well, one thing I've done is just apply a very thin layer of linseed oil to the canvas. Again, it's not something I always do, but it just saves a bit of time getting that first layer of paint on. It lubricates the surface and allows me to block in, kill the white, block in as much as possible. That's good.
We should say as well, Ewan, you're working in oils. I'm going to be working in acrylics. So between the two of us, you can figure out really the differences between the two medium. What I'll do is use a flow improver, a gel retardant, to kind of do the same job as the linseed oil.
Yeah, that should keep it open for a bit longer, keep it workable, right, in the same way as the oil does. What I'm going to do initially is to basically kill the white, because I am thinking in terms of blocking the background tone around the head. It's a fairly neutral colour. What I'm seeing to the left of Alison's head is the wall over there with the shelves. I'm just averaging it out to a sort of mid-tone, browny grey.
There's something about sitting maybe quite so close to the model as well, Ewan.
Well, yes, I'm thinking in terms of sight size, that is, painting the head the size I'm seeing it, and the way to achieve that is to have the canvas alongside the subject. So I'm just going to be measuring horizontally across, making sure the head fits on the canvas nicely, and yeah, getting my vertical coordinates by measuring directly across. If I had the canvas, if I had the easel closer to me over here, and tried painting sight size, I'd be painting a tiny little head, because from a distance the head's going to be much, much smaller. So to get something approaching life size, I like to have the easel next to the sitter. And I'm making all my decisions from a good couple of paces back, so I can see the subject in the painting from a few paces back.
Okay. And
then I'll step forward, make the marks, and then step back and see if they're more or less on target.
In terms of placing, well, setting up the composition, placing it on the canvas, do you have a predetermined idea in mind, or do you envisage it?
Well, as you see, I've just blasted in here almost central, But yes, it's good to think in terms of how the head occupies the space and whether the sort of formula of a vertical format works best. It doesn't necessarily for the subject. In this case, I would like to include the head and the front of the chest there, the neckline. So I think this formula will work well. Whether or not to have her off-centre, the convention would be to have her, because I'm looking at this side of the head, the convention would be to have her off-centre to the right so that she's looking into the space. It just feels psychologically more comfortable if the direction of gaze occupies the space here. Then again, the other consideration is the balance and the weight of the head. You kind of want it to be fairly vertical, fairly central, just so the whole thing has a pleasing sense of weight on both sides. Now, if I were to put her off-centre, I'd want to find some other way to balance it up, and it might be that something in the background provides that balance. I think I'll have you more or less central though. The symmetry of having the head dead centre is somewhat broken by the fact it's a 3/4 view, so it's not as if it's just going to be a mirror image on both sides, eyes. Anyway, let's see. I need to get more down before I can start playing Spot the Difference.
Let's go for it.
The hearth on the right there, quite like the dark tone.
Yeah.
It's just another coordinate to measure things against.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm finding that because I'm using the bigger canvas, which was all I could get my hands on the way out the door this morning. The size scene thing you're talking about, I'm struggling with that now because I'm feeling like I have to make it bigger.
Sight size? Well, I mean, you could work sight size, you could actually put the easel behind Alison, but keep stepping back to this point and keep trying to measure across.
So you're almost in life size.
Yeah, well, it'd be larger than life if you had it far enough back. If you want to do a larger than life head, then the logic of this would entail having the easel further away. But yes, for a quick push, I do tend to work on a fairly small scale.
Good idea. Yeah.
I do think whenever you find yourself scaling up, that is making adding another layer of complication, which is quite tricky. I'm suggesting this sight size thing to make it as simple as possible. You've always got a very clear reference from one to the other.
So very good.
But it might be an opportunity for you to use the canvas on its side, to use the horizontal format.
Great.
It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a plan. I'll do that. That's interesting. I'm already seeing that even with the top of the hearth there, the mantelpiece. It's really easy just to take the line of that.
Yeah.
to the head.
Yeah. Although I would urge you to do that from a couple of paces back. Make all your judgments from that 2 paces back. So it might be that it's exactly the same position, but
yeah, but because it's on the eye level, it is. I think, but you're right.
Yeah. So I'm not actually looking at Alison when I'm at the canvas. I'm looking at the canvas rubbing in the first layer, and then I step back
And decide where she is. Okay, good.
As I look on the flesh tone, I'm thinking in terms of a mid-tone. I'm seeing highlights and shadows, but this is sort of mid-tone, a flat shape of the mid-tone of the whole thing, of the whole area that will be occupied by the head and neck.
I remember the only other time we painted really together, you'd asked me to try out your fuzzy glasses that you invented.
Yes.
And it was to paint a still life that you'd set up. And so I did this painting of a still life with the glasses on and changed down the layers and then took them off, touched in the detail, and I was really happy with it at the end. Ewan came up and said, do you mind if I just make a few wee changes? I said, yeah, go ahead. Completely repainted my still life.
I'm ashamed of this. I think I broke the cardinal rule of any teaching. You don't touch the other person's painting, but you were very obliging. You said, okay, go ahead. And I got into it.
And it was a much better painting at the end of it. So.
To be fair, it was your first attempt with the fuzzy specs, and I don't know if anyone apart from me would enjoy having the vision blurred. The specs are basically just spec frames with plastic film that happens to blur what I'm seeing, so that I'm seeing.
You've got this on just now?
Yeah. I do still use them from time to time.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take off my glasses then, and I'll try and do it without my glasses on.
Yeah, see how you find it. Because you really shouldn't be caught up in extraneous detail initially. I don't want to be seeing eyebrows and eyelashes, I just want to see a big mass of tone, touch the colours in general terms.
Instantly it feels better actually.
Does
just
it?
seeing
Does it?
blocks of tone. Yeah.
It's a very painterly way of seeing. I got the idea reading about artists later in life who were producing their best work and whose eyesight was somewhat on the wane. Painters like Degas and Titian definitely producing their best work when they didn't have such sharp eyesight. They were seeing things more broadly and the brush can flow more expressively.
So no excuses about having bad eyesight.
Definitely not. It's a virtue. I mean, it's an advantage.
I see what you mean about the covering on the canvas to begin with as well. Yeah, I was using. I was using a slow drying medium, and it creates, like you were saying, a kind of greasy surface to work on, which keeps everything much more fluid, particularly with the acrylic's tendency to dry out quickly. I'm going to fight against it as well. I think whenever you're doing a demonstration painting, there's always a tendency to want to do it slickly or do it quickly. So fighting against that feeling of making it up.
Yeah.
You've got to try and keep looking. Be honest.
All the more so. And even just stopping and looking, because when there's an audience waiting with bated breath, you think they want you to do something impressive, but actually it's just as interesting watching someone take their time and make a decision that's not rushed.
And struggle.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's reassuring to see someone who's done this millions of times actually struggling.
I think so, it's true. Yeah. I think that's the point, there is no real formula to painting. You can have a process that helps, but this kind of formulaic approach, I think, always produces something that's a bit false.
It can do. And how can you have a formula when every head's different and every setup's different? Formulas are likely to trip you up and make you not see truly what's there. Better to be a bit, just have a sort of workman-like approach. What am I actually seeing? Constantly asking yourself, what's actually there? As a shape and colour.
Okay, so looking at what you're doing here, you're starting to define some of the shapes a bit more.
A little more. I mean, there comes a point when you're no longer following a system. It's more a case of being guided by what catches your eye. And it was the upper plane of the forehead which really caught my eye. I wanted to get that down. And see how that tone compares to other parts of the face.
That's what attracted me to Alison in the first place. The upper plane of the forehead.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, your sense of humour or other stuff. I'm all forehead. When you're mixing colours, are you thinking in terms of warmth at all? Coolness, warmth?
Definitely warm, cool, and well, it's all the dimensions of colour: light, dark, and intensity and dullness. But it's when you've got something on the canvas that you can compare it to the subject and decide actually it needs to be a bit cooler or a bit more colour in there. It's not necessarily getting it right on the palette. So you definitely need the confidence to be able to put one stroke on top of another, work wet and wet, rather than any of this tentative business of having to mix it perfectly on the palette. So I'm mixing a lot on the canvas.
Yeah. In terms of brushes, Ewan, is there any particular brushes you favour? Flat or round or filbert? Or?
I tend to have all types to hand. I suppose I'm mainly using filbert at the moment and big ones at that, just for quick coverage, nice big brushes. I do think anyone who just is so used to using tiny brushes don't know what they're missing. I urge everyone to try bigger brushes, more paint.
It's good fun, isn't it?
It is.
There's something very sort of visceral about smearing on big splodges of paint with a brush.
There is. A lot of the portraitists I like Guthrie and so on, I suppose favour a flat brush, that you get the chisel-like edges.
That can be very stylised though, I think.
Well, it can.
Not quite so organic.
It can. I mean, it's great for finding your way around the forms, but unless you're still prepared to soften edges here and there, it can look like a mannerism. If you look closely at the famous portrait by Guthrie of that old fellow, you know, what's his name? The Village Worthy, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Fantastic portrait, and it gives the first impression of being chisel-like brushstrokes and quite strongly painted, but it's very delicate, and I think pretty much every brushstroke has been in some way augmented or softened, so there's no really hard edges. A hard-edged brushstroke reads as flat, and yet all this has real form and volume.
Now, if it's the same one I'm thinking of, the background has those chiseled brushstrokes, but when you get into the face, he's got that kind of gradual change into much more organic, soft.
Well, I think he is still seeing it in little units of a single brushstroke at a time,
Yeah.
but it is softened, and there's definite modelling.
I've raced into that blue. I maybe shouldn't. It's a bit distracting.
I tend to think mainly tonally initially, so even if whether it's lighter or darker than the skin.
Yeah. Colour, I think, does that, doesn't it? Colour can be a real distraction, I think, from tone.
Yeah, colour really jumps out at you. I read one artist saying, colour's easy, tone's hard. Get the tone down first and then think about the colour. I don't necessarily think colour is easy, but it certainly leaps out at you.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So with my fuzzy specs, I really am seeing things in a blurry way, and I really do now have the desire to see things more detailed, like where's the nostril. But I think I'm going to stick to keeping the fuzzy specs on and just painting what I'm seeing. Getting these marks in more or less the right place. It feels that the painting paints itself if you get them in the right place. That's anchor points.
And have you changed brush size at all?
No, I'm still working with a bigger brush.
Still with a big brush. How big's big?
Okay. Pretty hefty. Not bigger than yours. I mean, not as big as yours.
I'm going to change that.
You're showing off with your huge canvas and your broom-like brushing.
Yeah, never mind the quality, just look at that. When you're sitting there, Alison, you notice any difference between what I'm doing and what Ewan's doing? Mm-hmm. Is he stepping back more? Or? He is. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder that.
He's also making marks before he makes the mark.
Oh yes.
What's that?
Yeah, I've found lately that I do gesture quite a lot, almost rehearsing the mark before I put it down.
Is that practice run?
It sort of is. It's
Practice swing.
It's totally unconscious, but
Positive visualization.
yeah, there's a lot of waggling of the brush.
Imagining the mark before you
Yeah. In fact, if you can come to the point where you're seeing the subject and thinking in terms of just paint, forgetting that it's skin and fabric and actually seeing that as paint. I think this was a William Merritt Chase suggestion. Just see the subject as painted and then you'll find your way forward. Because it can be quite inhibiting thinking, so how do you paint skin? How do you paint hair? But then you know it can actually be oil paint. I mean, you know that oil paint can do all these things.
I think when, I know that often when students are painting water, clouds, metal is another one.
Yeah.
How do you paint metal in glass?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just looking at the shape, it's looking at the colour, and breaking it down to the visual elements.
Exactly.
And then taking it from there.
And it's magic and
It just happens, doesn't it?
it does, it does. I do think in terms of horizontal and vertical coordinates a lot, and it doesn't sound very arty, but
But it's dropping a plumb line or taking a horizontal across and relating it to other points.
it's so important, so important. And you're getting all your horizontals from the actual head, the fact that it does line up, not from your point of view, but from the artist's point of view. And the verticals, as soon as you've got a mark, sort of anchor point, see what's directly below that, see where the hair falls and everything. Just keep dropping these lines down. That's good.
You just keep talking while I'm racing it. Not that there's any competition. It's actually so seldom I think that artists get an opportunity to be in competition with each other.
It's true. I'd love to do it more often. I'm not thinking in terms of competition,
it does push you on. There's something about having somebody else there that forces you to keep working and thinking.
Yeah.
You don't just head off and have another coffee.
No, you can if you like. Go ahead. Maybe check Facebook.
Whoa, that's what was it? Didn't write that in there. So I'm not using a black, which actually, in this instance, is probably inhibiting me. I'm trying to mix my grey with an umber and ultramarine.
No, that should be fine. That should be fine.
I'm pushing it too much one way or the other.
Whistler thought ivory black was the great harmoniser, and he would actually add a touch of ivory black to all the colours on the palette.
Wow.
So much for black being forbidden. Monet certainly was against the use of black because it does contaminate the spectral colours in a way. Again, Sargent said he couldn't paint a portrait without black on the palette.
It neutralises everything, which is useful.
It is very useful.
Yeah.
I think when people are just beginning to play around with paints, they go wrong with black when they hope they can just darken every colour with it and it'll look natural. Try darkening yellow with black and you get a very strong green, and or an orange. Try darkening orange with black, it can go greeny as well.
I remember seeing a great William McClure landscape painted at twilight. And from a distance, the entire canvas looked grey.
Right.
Just completely blacked out almost. And you got up close, and there was these rich reds and greens and purples and violet, just beautiful colours.
Wow.
But there was a tremendous amount of black mixed in with each of the colours. That just subdued everything.
Yeah. No, it's quite exciting when you spot that and you realise you can get away with doing things which are against the rules. And do you check your painting with a mirror as you're working? As a general rule, would you?
No, I don't. But I know it's a technique that a lot of people use. Yeah.
Definitely useful for portraiture and
Yeah.
figure just by seeing the subject in the painting flipped around, it just refreshes the eye.
So, you show us what you're doing there,
Yeah, balancing it against my hooter
Okay.
and looking with my left eye at.
Don't know if you can see that on the camera.
Well, you have a go. I mean, I'm doing. It doesn't matter if you do it with the side like that or.
But you're putting a small mirror just against the inside of your nose.
Yeah.
So that you can see the painting and the sitter.
Yeah, both flipped.
In the mirror.
Do have a go. That's why it's probably a bit pinky.
So, if I put it there and look with my left eye.
You might want to stand a bit further back until you both come into view.
Got it. Yeah, it's covered in oil paint.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. It just tends to be inaccuracies pop out at you that you may have become inured to. At such an early stage, probably everything's still very provisional, but when you're getting closer to the end,
Yeah.
you think it's getting there, and then you suddenly notice, the eyes are too widely spaced or something like that.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I've made her face too chubby, and that's going to be a bad thing.
Right.
Do you have particular favourites that you've painted? People you've painted? Or is there a particular shape of face or?
I tend as a general rule to find fellas easier.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, the early stages of a painting tend to look somewhat masculine, just broad brushstrokes, strong forms, and that can be a little unflattering on the feminine physiognomy. I tend to worry about letting a woman sitter see a portrait halfway done because it can be a bit tough looking. Whereas a fella quite likes looking tough. Not to generalise too much.
Alison's pretty tough.
She is catching the reel here. How did you get the Runicles portrait?
It's who you know. I teach his sister
Oh, right.
in one of my art classes.
I
and
see.
They were looking for a present for his 60th
Mhm,
birthday. And
Great idea.
I was the only artist they knew.
But how did you feel about doing a portrait commission like that? I mean, certainly you've done others, but...
Yeah, a few bits and pieces, but nothing quite so I suppose daunting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a well-known face, obviously, in classical music circles.
Yeah.
And so we had to live with him in our conservatory for months and months. Now we keep going back to it and changing little bits. And but I find, again, quite a clinical approach. What I would do is photograph my painting and open it on the computer screen alongside a photograph or several photographs I was working from, and sit with a coffee or whatever and make decisions based, just a few little things. Just the distance here is a millimetre too long, and the angle there needs changed, or an edge needs softened, and then we go back and make those changes almost blind without making any other changes. Then photograph it again and just follow the same process. Often sort of rotate it, have it upside down on the screen, and make those kind of things. But the process seemed very clinical. So at the end, I had to go back in, I think, and liven up some of the brush strokes, give it a bit more fluidity, a bit more painterliness.
Yeah. There's always this battle between what you expect a painting to be like and what you expect it to feel like during an actual painting. I mean, there's a romantic side, splashing paint around, and the fact that it is pretty technical, just to do these very basic. But when I have been doing portraits from photos, I end up doing that kind of thing more than I would painting from life. I do prefer the slightly more unpredictable nature of painting from life. When you've got unlimited time with a photo in front of you, you end up measuring too much, and I mean, I don't know. There's just no end point until you've got it like a photo. I think I saw your final painting though. You did manage to steer clear of that pitfall. It did look like a lively painting, but yeah, you can get rather.
It's true, yeah. I mean, it took a lot of work at the end, getting a bit of life back into it. Because the initial underpainting, I was really happy with. I did a tonal underpainting to start with. And I thought, oh, that's great, you know, really, there's a bit of life to it. And then I started to introduce the colour, and that's where it all got very clinical. Right, so we're starting again. And we've decided to introduce a little bit of Prosecco just to see if that helps the process a little bit.
This is a work in progress. This is an experiment. We'll see.
Right. And I've got my glasses on now. As soon as I put my glasses on, first thing I noticed was she looks like a robot. Very angular, everything.
What about the painting?
Right, I need to soften some of this up. We'll see how we go.
I think all the great portraits slatter to some extent. I'm absolutely sure Sargent did make his women's sitters look younger and all the rest of it, make his male sitters look stronger.
So it has to be your model, but then on a good day, or good lighting.
Well, that's right, just using tact, just being tactful, and yeah, the lighting's a lot of it.
Not have any problems.
No, clearly. No issues with that.
I do find it very tricky though. I mean, I've had sitters who almost want me to perform plastic surgery. This really goes against the grain, because I think all faces are interesting. In this instance, it was someone who really looked good. I mean, why the sitter happened to have insecurities, I have no idea. So it's very hard to concentrate when you're trying to reinvent nature.
So what are you thinking about at this stage anyway?
I'm still thinking about obvious proportion issues, and I mentioned something earlier about if you make a mistake, you don't necessarily need to panic and tackle it immediately. I've given Alison far too strong a jaw, far too sort of masculine and mandible there. And if I were worried about Alison looking at it now, I'd probably start changing it. But I do want to just keep shuffling around the forms and decide exactly what needs to change. I mean, it's almost like I know that's wrong, it'll be easy enough to fix that, so I look forward to getting round to that, but I don't need to attend to it immediately.
Yeah. I think there is always that, as you say, rush, particularly when people are looking.
Yeah.
Kind of regret.
There's that fear that they're thinking something, they're thinking, why has he left that wrong?
Yeah.
You want to have one up on them.
I notice it a lot in the class, I think, because people are conscious that there'll be other people coming around and looking at their work, and they've got to quickly get it right.
Definitely.
But if we can hold off on that, you're right, there's much more to the game. What said that? I'm falling into that trap.
Yeah, well.
How did you find it? I should have asked you more about this. How did you find it on the competition, on the programme, painting alongside the other artists?
I was probably less aware of them than all this stuff going on round about behind me, and
the cameraman and...
Yeah, cameraman getting right in front of you to film you and film your neighbours.
Get out my way! And were you told just to ignore them?
We weren't given any coaching whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, that was fairly obvious that you should just try and ignore them, but they didn't really tell you what they were about to do, or I don't think the production crew necessarily knew all that much about what goes into making a portrait, and so they maybe didn't know they were being distracting, horribly distracting, getting in your way and asking you questions 2 minutes before the time's run out.
Okay, so that's us back after our night's rest, and we're just looking to try and tidy things up. Ewan's has come on amazingly well, and I've come in this morning and been a bit disappointed.
Nonsense.
So, really, this morning is just about assessing last minute things. What are you going to do with yours, Ewan?
Same as when I started, still just looking at proportions, and I still don't feel I've quite captured the simple blocky structure of Alfred's beautiful face.
It's first time heard.
Such poetic words. So it's just one of those things you just keep going back, just reassessing, and you know when you see it, when things click. Hopefully that'll be in the very hopefully that'll happen soon. So we'll see.
so good.
Oh, I just, in the last minute or so, I suddenly feel I've got something to work with. It's taken all this time. Yours is looking much nicer though.
It's coming to life. It's coming to life. Yeah, not anything like that. It's just the boldness, I think. And you're right. It's just doing it a lot. It's building that confidence and and proportionally as well. I'm noticing so many little errors in mine that if I had spent more time at the beginning doing that, it probably would have come together better. There's just tiny little bits where, oh no, that needs to be longer. Oh, that needs to be wider. It's driving me mad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing all the wrong things. Sometimes I'm just trying to move things by a millimetre, but I think when you do find yourself wondering if just shifting it by a millimetre, that might be the time to reach for a big brush again and then the general structure again. I mean, I'm going back and forth and back and forth.
But you're right, I think you could continue painting for weeks on end on the same painting and never really getting anywhere, just painting around in circles. There comes a point just to stop, doesn't there? Step away. That's not soon, by the way, Mom.
Up a little bit now, but that's perfect.
What's this? Right, okay.
Something else to try.
What's this? Okay.
Well, this allows you to see more tonally, see the painting and the subject as a.
So you're looking at both? Oh my goodness, yeah.
So it just eliminates the complication of colour and helps you see whether or not you're on target with the tones.
Let's just put that in front of the camera. Okay, so that's what we're seeing.
It's like a red version of a black and white photo, so you can really just see the structure.
And you get to see, I think, the tonal relationships, don't you? So you're looking for the darks and the lights, and how they just relate to each other. Oh. The other problem is everything you own is covered in a stream of oil paint.
I wonder why that is. It's a filthy, greasy person.
This is great. Everything. I love this though. And then you've got the if we can show it.
The reducing
we'll
glass.
try and do that up at the camera. Will that work? The reducing glass is an interesting one as well. That reduces the paintings and the sitter to something just a bit smaller. So you can see a condensed version of the image.
Yeah, too many people work right up close and they don't see the whole picture, but when you step back or use a reducing glass, it compresses.
And can we try your glasses as well up at the will it work? What have we got?
I mean, these really are fingerprinty, but I suppose you can sort of see it becomes an impressionistic mist of colour, and then you add the detail.
That's great. Thanks, Chip.
you're really wanting to work it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, model. And thank you, Ewan. That was absolutely fantastic, and I've learned an awful lot.